is Wes Rodriguez, and you're listening to Sink or Swim. I want you guys to close your eyes for just a second and think about the time in your life when you started to think about and act on what you wanted to do. When you started to think thoughts like, I've never done this before, I'd like to try this. What suits me? What suits my personality? What do I want to do in life? What are the things that I'd like to experiment with and test out? What defines me as a person, as an individual in this world? And that will bring you to the subject of what I want to talk about today. First times. Way back when I was establishing the liberation of adolescence, I made that a priority. I want to get through all of my first times as quickly as possible. I want to be able to say, yeah, I've done that before. I know what that's like. I can identify with this. Unfortunately, the drawback to that is it's all downhill after that. And all of those things that kind of renew and rejuvenate life as you progress through it. You start running out of those things that will make you say, well, I can, in a sense, be high on this for a while. I can live on this for some time until I can try something else that I've never done before. And depending on the territory that you wish to establish your first times in, I wanted it to be with women. Of course, that didn't work out, being the awkward, socially retarded, nerdy individual that I was. I turned to substances. So the first time I got high, I think I was in 7th grade. I was about 12 or 13. And my best friend at the time, Scott Feltwell, I think we were watching some kind of horror flick, and we were talking, or he was talking about his older brother. So when it came to popular culture, Scott was my channel into what's cool and popular in the world, and his brother was his channel. And the topic of drugs came up, and we made a pact, like, well, let's get high. But we could do it together. That way, we each have someone to back us up, so to speak. And so he managed to get himself some weed, some marijuana, some bud. I've been sober for so long now, those words sound awkward coming out of my mouth. Now it's chronic and kush. I think my older brother was there too. Well, none of us had gotten high yet, and having no frame of reference on how to go about doing it, none of us had a pipe or anything. I've mentioned before on the podcast, I used to fly model airplanes. I must have been born destined to be a stoner. When we realized we needed something to smoke out of, I automatically saw the world through the prism of a stoner. And anybody who's smoked enough weed in their life can appreciate the mindset that you can turn anything into a smoking contraption. You can see things that the normal person wouldn't recognize as that could be a smoking utensil. I can fashion that together and smoke fucking weed out of it. And interestingly enough, the exhaust systems on most gas-powered model airplane engines, they look surprisingly similar to a metal pipe. So we fashioned together some kind of bowl, a material receptacle, so to speak, something to capture the tobacco, as they say in the smoke shops. Of course, they're referring to weed, but you can't say that. So all we had to do was fashion together something to hold our weed and a screen to keep it from being drawn into our lungs. And lo and behold, the exhaust system from a model airplane is now elevating your brain up to the same heights via the vessel of intoxicants, or getting your brain fucking high. But being naive little young punks who don't know what the fuck they're doing and using Hollywood as a frame of reference, had no idea to go about this. Of course, we were pretty fucking industrious, having no connections to be able to find a pipe or anything, but fashioning one together. We had no idea how to put it together. It was bad weed. It had a lot of lumber, as they say, like seeds and stems, shit you don't want to smoke. I don't know how we knew that was bad. I think my friend had asked his brother enough details to gather up that we need to refine the buds, so to speak, remove all the shit that's going to either make us choke or taste bad. And my older brother decided to take charge and had the notion of, well, when you deal with drugs, of course, a razor blade has to come into the picture. I don't know where he got that idea. Maybe he had taken his own trips down Let's Get High Avenue and didn't know about it. But anybody starting out in the world of marijuana, fucking razor blades are probably not going to come into the picture. But that didn't stop him from proceeding to break down the weed that we had procured to a fine powder-like substance. And the problem with our system is if you break down weed to a certain point, when you light it, it's just going to draw right through the screen and into your lungs. And that's exactly what happened. And it made it very hard to smoke and pretty much ruined anything that we had gathered up to experiment with. However, it did the trick. A lot of people don't get high from weed their first time. And it took me a while to feel the effects. For me, it was very strange. You go through that transition of, I don't feel anything. Do you feel anything? I don't know, man. I'm fucking thirsty as hell. And I'm really worried about when your mom is going to come home. All I know is I'm feeling really nauseous and hyper. And I really don't know what to do with myself. But I think it would feel really good if I hung my head over the toilet and tried to make myself puke, which is what I did. I don't know why, but it made my head spin. It made me really fucking nauseous. But when I did finally puke and I lifted my head up, I had this rush of adrenaline. And I felt it was like the closest thing I could relate to it at that age was like spinning around until you fell down from dizziness, except you weren't dizzy. You were just fucking, like your head was just packed with cotton and your thoughts were filtered through a thick cloud. And I proceeded to run around the guest house on my property like a chicken with its head cut off. It's not very clear memory. I've done so many drugs in my life. I don't have very vivid, clear memories. But I do remember running around like a fool. And at one point I jumped at the drywall and my feet planted inside the drywall and broke through. And it was all funny at the time till we sobered up and realized how we're going to explain this to my parents. And then the inventive, quick thinking comes in to save your ass. And we realized that if we just covered it up with a poster, no one would be the wiser. I don't remember my mom ever finding that out. I've been busted on other things, but that one I never got thrown back at me. So I never had to explain why the fucking hole in the drywall was there. But that was the first time I got high on weed and threw me into the spiral of degradation and escape from reality, which would consume me for the next 20 years and bring me to today where I don't have that filter, that safety net of I can get high and that'll get me through. Now I gotta live each and every minute and roll with the emotional ups and downs of what is everyday life. So bringing it full circle, first times are meant to be very precious, people. Take your life seriously, because when you reflect back on the first time you experience something, you want it to be very pleasurable. You want to be able to tell your offspring or your family about it later on and not have to be embarrassed by it. Because not too many people are going to be doing their own podcast and be able to use it as comedy material. So it is much better to have a standout memory in your brain, that milestone in your life. The first time, you want that first time you read a book and it changed your life. That to be significant. Not the first time you fucking smoked weed. Or the first time you painted a picture or built a model airplane and flew it, or your first touchdown pass, or the first time you punched your brother in the face. So if I've sparked any kind of spontaneous memory that just jumps out at you, a significant first time in your life, send me an email or tweet the show. Twitter is SOSWITHWAM. We'll read it out. You can tell me about the first time you got laid. First time I got laid? Well, I had a lot of physical activity before I actually felt the pleasure of penetration. It kind of gives you a little insight to who I am as a lover. I get more out of pleasing a woman than I do receiving pleasure. I mean, I enjoy it just as much, I'm sure, but a lot of my pleasure comes from seeing the reaction of the woman I'm with. I think a lot of that goes back to my first real relationship. It was months after being physically active with her before she allowed me to have sex with her. And my God, it fucking drove me crazy. She'd let me go down on her. She'd let me touch her, but I fucking couldn't pull my cock out. And you can imagine how frustrating that is. But out of respect for her and her privacy, I won't reveal any details. She had legitimate reasons why she would be withholding when it came to being sexually intimate. And mind you, I haven't got my own place. So sexual scenarios are few and far between. And being a virgin, any physical activity will just drive you over the fucking edge. So I'm looking forward to every possibility that I might be able to get my dick wet. And you can imagine how frustrating it is when you'd have to be away from your girlfriend in order for you to come. It drove me crazy. Drove me insane. Fucked with my head, my self-esteem, and I was too horny to actually put too much effort into it. So I was just trying to experience what I could with a girl and then get out of that situation so that I could jerk off and get my own fucking orgasm. Reflecting back on it, it explains a lot when it comes to how focused I am at pleasing a woman before I even consider my orgasm. But the first time I had sex was, well, like I was saying, I didn't have my own place. And so I was going to say moved out of my mom's house, but I had run away. I'll get into that on another podcast. But I was staying with my friend Julian and Chris. I think I spoke about that on a previous podcast. And my girlfriend would visit there and we'd fool around there. There was a spare bedroom. Chris had his own bedroom. And Chris let me use the bedroom one night. And my girlfriend finally gave me the permission to experience the holiest of holies. And as I'm about to mount and penetrate my girlfriend for the first time, my friend's mom opened the door and was blinded by the pale virgin skin of my ass. And I don't know why, but it seemed like she was way more embarrassed than I was. I didn't even move. I was way too dedicated and focused on getting inside that I don't think I even stopped thrusting. And she was so embarrassed that she immediately apologized and closed the door as quickly as possible. And I can still hear her apologizing as she's walking down the hallway. And my girlfriend and I got a kick out of that, and we were laughing. And I didn't skip a beat, and I continued my 2.5 minutes of exquisite pleasure. And that would be the first time I had sex. I got to share that moment with more than just my girlfriend. Okay, well, let's switch gears here, and I'll introduce our next segment. Let's do some comedy showcase. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this podcast before, but one of the things you can expect from Sink or Swim is a lot of pod talk. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I work in a warehouse, and that affords me the opportunity to do physical activity and put in an earbud and listen to talk shows. And one of them, I don't think I've mentioned it. Mohr Stories, Mohr, as in Jay Mohr. Mohr Stories. Jay Mohr is most famous for the role of Bob Sugar, the agent who plays opposite of Tom Cruise in the restaurant scene where he lets Tom Cruise know that he's fired. Very climactic scene, and he hit that one out of the park. Anyhow, Jay Mohr also did 2 seasons on SNL and has done plenty of movies, done plenty of voiceover work. He's done voices on video games even. He's also famous for a large array of impersonations. And he still performs stand-up comedy. And a couple years ago, he started his own podcast under the umbrella of Kevin Smith. Since then, he's moved on and under his own label, Fake Mustache. So you can find him on iTunes, Mohr Stories, under Fake Mustache Studios. Anyhow, he, in this episode, is interviewing Bert Kreischer. Bert Kreischer launched his career from a 6-page article in Rolling Stones dubbing him the #1 partier in the nation. And through that, and from that launch pad, he skyrocketed into the world of comedy and has done about 3 or 4 different television shows and a few other pilots. And he's had appearances on David Letterman and has built a career in stand-up comedy for himself. So in this episode of Sink or Swim's Comedy Showcase, you'll be hearing them discuss Jay Mohr working with Charlie Murphy, Eddie Murphy's brother, and Bert Kreischer will be talking about dropping acid and going to Disneyland. Fucking hilarious! So without further ado, I bring to you and now the Sink or Swim Comedy Showcase, featuring Jay Mohr and Bert Kreischer.
Charlie Murphy was so high in that movie, the director's chairs that you sit in between takes, they just take your chairs out, like, let me get your chair. So like my chair, Anthony Anderson, a couple people, Brooke Dorsey, like a couple actresses and stuff. And for some reason, like they got called away. The prop guy got called away to do something, and Charlie's chair was just facing, it was against a brick wall, facing the brick wall. And there was about a 40-minute setup to get a crane and a China ball up in the sky inside this giant mall. And that motherfucker sat in the we're all sitting like this in a circle talking with our director's chairs. Yeah. Charlie, like, not wanting to rock the boat and be the asshole that turns his chair around. They go, okay, we're ready for you guys. And we didn't know he was there until he goes, and you just hear the, in my opinion, the funniest sound of comedy is a chair backing up, like pre-fight.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you go fuck yourself? You go, uh-oh. Like, that's my favorite sound. And Charlie, you just hear, and you realize, and he was like knees, like his face was 6 inches from a brick wall in a mall. And we're all right behind him going, get out of here. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. And Charlie told me a story, and he held a joint. And the whole time he had the joint in his hand, he would go to hand me the joint and then say something else, and he kept pulling it back. So for like 40 minutes, he's telling a story, and now he lights his second joint. He goes, I'll tell you something else, man. This partner right here, I'll tell you this, Playboy. Like, reach for it. You go, see people like him, and he would just point across the room, and you just keep reaching, and you're like a toddler reaching for Melba toast.
Yeah.
But it's, and he told the story where a bully in his high school used to fuck everybody up all the time, this kid. I forget his name. But one day they had karate fights with sticks, and this kid took a stick to the eye and lost his eye. And he had an eye patch. And now everyone, was happy that he lost his eye because he was like the Gooch from fucking Different Strokes. He was a real bad fucking bully.
What a reference. Yeah.
And the Gooch from Different Strokes. And so people would go, yeah, fuck you, punk. I'll fight you, man. And then they'd go fight at the bike rack or wherever they fought, and they'd poke him in his eye, and he was blind. And then they would just and they would just shoe shine. Bah, 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 and they would just kick the shit out of him. This motherfucker, the night before a fight, went to the school and mapped out with his eyes closed how to walk blind from the schoolroom to the bike rack. And the next day put the eye patch over his good eye and walked out like a fucking zombie, but acting like real cool. But it's Charlie Murphy telling the story like, so he acting all hard, but they don't know he mapped that shit out the night before, right? God, see this playboy, he got keys to the school and the shit goes like way back, and it's like layered, like the janitor knew his uncle, right? So Cat got keys to the school and worked for like hours, man. For like 4 hours. Playboy was out there just doing a zombie walk out to that bike rack, partner. And the next day, they like, yeah, fuck you, punk. And he goes, I bet. Meet me at the bike rack. Bet your ass. I bet, partner. Be there, man. All right. With the big fucking teeth. Be there, man. So check it, man. My man, like, remember that cat Lon Chaney? He used to play all them fucked up villains and on ghosts and shit. Motherfucker just walk out to the bike rack like motherfucker, like a fucking black Lon Chaney. Nigga just steady rolling, real cool, but walking slow like he don't give a fuck. And the kid goes, yeah, fuck you, punk, and poke him in his blind eye. And then that motherfucker flip his eye patch up like, and just housed this nigga, man. Just fucked him up. Man, we all know. Everybody thought he was like part zombie, man. Oh, everyone said, don't, man. Didn't you see when he was blind and he was running around? But they thought he was blind after he got poked in the eye. So they watched that motherfucker get on his bike and ride his bike home with no eyes. Oh, man. They didn't know that was the bad eye. Now, how you gonna defeat a motherfucker that can fight you with no eyes?
So when I was in college, this is a perfect example of who I was. Not saying that I'm grown up or at all by any stretch of the means. We go in Amsterdam when we're in college, and me and 4 buddies, and we see a live sex show, and on the banner it says flying dildos. Like 5 things they do: live sex, oral sex, girl on girl, guy on girl, and then the last one. This is in Amsterdam. They have live sex shows. Oh, the last one says flying dildos. That's what it says, and I fucking see that, and we're fucking lit. I'm 22 years old. Well, I'm like, guys, flying dildos. And they're like, what? And I go, it's flying dildos. We got to see flying dildos. So we go in. It is the size of the Boston Comedy Club. Okay. Set up much like the Boston
It's too bad it's not open anymore because no one fucking talks about this fucking place more than
Tell me about it.
And, okay, sorry.
No, I went there the other day. It's a wine bar.
Yeah.
It's
going a long way to prove a point.
So it's the size of the Boston Comedy Club, and the stage is a little bigger, but it's the same kind of stadium seating, right? And I'm sitting on the top row, just watching. And the first girl comes out by herself, and I start the murmur in the crowd of all dudes, 22. I start going, flying dildos, flying dildos, flying dildos.
You were in Amsterdam at 22?
At 22, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you went there
in Russia.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm going, flying dildos. And then they start going, flying dildos. And the girl comes on stage. She goes, no, not flying dildos. Sorry. And so she does her little act, and we're like, yeah, it's okay. And so then the next one comes out. It's a guy and a girl. And I start going, flying dildos, flying dildos. And they're like, sorry, we're not flying dildos. So they do their act, and everyone's like, So then by the third chick that comes out, girl on girl, the whole place is chanting, flying dildos, flying dildos. And they're pissed, right? They got to do a girl on girl scene, but they're like, we're not flying dildos, okay? And so we're like, oh, boo. So as they're doing their thing, we're booing, boo, flying dildos. So the next girl comes out. It's a girl in like fucking a dominatrix like looking outfit, but like sexy hot, and she's got a medicine bag, like what a doctor's kit bag looks like, and she comes out, and by this time the whole fucking group is chanting, foot stomping the ground, flying dildos, and she goes, stop, I am flying dildos. And the place goes fucking nuts. I'm talking 80 guys like, yeah! And she goes, I will need one volunteer from the audience. And everyone starts pointing to me, flying dildos. And I'm fucking. So
she was doing a Bono impression too?
Yeah. She's doing a Bono impression too. So I go out, I stand on stage, and I've got my fucking finger in the air like, flying dildos, and the whole place is chanting. And she fucking comes behind me, And the first thing she does is she wraps a chain around my body, and everyone's going, flying dildos, flying dildos. Then she handcuffs me, and I'm like, behind my back, flying dildos. She rips my shirt open, pulls my pants down, throws me on the floor on my back, throws a dildo in my mouth, and then just starts fucking, and stands up, and she goes, that's flying dildos, and walks off. And I'm fucking tied up on stage, naked, going, help, somebody help me.
She
fucking
sat on the dildo.
Sat on it, just like, and everyone fucking loses their mind, and literally 80 guys come up and just start snapping pictures of me fucking naked with a dildo next to my head, like, help me. And this is well before fucking digital photos, because that shit would have been all over Facebook. It would have ruined my life.
You should go. When you were in Amsterdam this time, did you look for flying dildos?
So we go into the banana place, and Matt Schuler, my manager, knows the story. And so all of a sudden they do the banana. He goes, I wonder if they're going to do flying dildos. She does her banana trick. All of a sudden, dildo in, boom, flying across the room. Dude catches it. She goes, throw it back. Throws it back. She pops it. She's just shooting like BP to all these guys. Just bam, bam, bam. And I'm sitting, I'm going, so that was what flying dildos should have looked like. Oh, that's nice.
I like many things about that story.
Okay. What?
I like that you get, it's almost like Christians versus the Lions mentality. Yeah. And then you go 80 guys. Because in my mind, I'm picturing like, the stadium at like University of Michigan. Like, flying dildos. Flying. Hey, black, you devil. Like people seeing the Stones at Madison Square Garden. It's really 80, but since you're a comic, we know it's 40.
It was really 23.
Yeah. And then I love that prior, like there's girls eating each other's boxes for strangers, and you're like, next. We're good. Like if I have to sit through one more girl act 8 feet in front of me,
flying dildos, and they're like, flying dildos. It was the best. It was like this big camaraderie event. And then the worst part is that like she ripped my shirt, and my buddy PJ Kuzmano took pictures with his camera, just sat there and snap. And I remember I had a girlfriend, I was like, ooh, is this cheating? Like I remember thinking in my head. Yeah. But then we got done and they were like, what do you guys want to do next? I have a shirt ripped. I've been handcuffed. My wrists are bruised. I'm like, let's just go back to the room and take naps.
You guys want to fill the tub with Listerine and lay in it with their legs open? That's what I want to do.
Does anyone feel like brushing their teeth? Because I kind of want to brush my teeth and shave.
Oh, that lady just lowered. How close did she come to your face?
Not very. In real life,
too
not
close.
Very. Way too close. Here's the worst part is I have crowns and veneers, so I was afraid she was going to knock my teeth out. And I was like, if someone said, how'd you lose your teeth in Amsterdam? Oh, it's got a dildo shoved down my throat. Hutch one time got us. My frisbee was stuck in a tree, and I was trying to get it out with this stick. And Hutch comes up. This was like right when I met him, and he's like, "Hey, if I were you, I'd be real careful throwing that stick in the tree." I was like, "Why?" And he's like, "Well, you know how when you look up, your mouth automatically opens." And I was like, "No." He's like, "Try it." And then you look up, and you're like, "Oh, holy shit, my mouth does open." He's like, "Sticks allowed to go right down your throat. Happened to me twice." I was like, how unaware do you have to be to have a stick go down your throat? To throw it up and go, oh shit, I missed a frisbee, but I'm not going to walk far for this stick. No, it looks like so that's Hutch, right? That happened to him 3 times in real life, because it happened to him once again with a bike's flag. He was like, you remember when you were a kid, you throw a bike flag in the air and it would just stick in the ground, you just do that all day?
Fucking bike flags, dude.
Yeah, and he was like, one time I threw a bike flag up and someone yelled, hey, Hutch. And I looked, and then I looked to find out where the flag's going to go. Wham, right down the throat again. And all I can picture is a guy with that bike flag bouncing back and forth going, oh.
Man, you brought me back with bike flags, dude.
Yeah. Harper was one time misspelled his name. That's who Harper is. Happer, 2 P's, no R. I was like, I go, hey, Harp, you misspelled your name. He's like, no, that happens. I was like, no, it fucking doesn't. I've never been like running late, wrote a note like, see you later, Burf. So that's Harper, that's Hutch. We get this acid called Purple Jesus from Cheetah. Cheetah tells us when we get it, he goes, now listen, this is really strong acid, so you don't want to think any bad thoughts while you're on it. And Hutch, right out the gate, goes, what's a bad thought? And Cheetah's like, your head's an orange and you want to peel it. That's a bad thought. I was like, what? Enough of the bad thoughts. I would have never thought of that in a million fucking years. Yeah. And then right out the gates, we're like, get it off, like trying to peel our fucking heads.
How much of Purple Jesus did you do?
Half. I did half. Everyone did a half. And we take the other half. That's what an adult does. Take the other half, save it for later. So, if you like it, and we're losing our minds. So
it's not a good time.
The second you take it, first thing Hutch says, I think I lost my wallet. Not how you want to start an acid trip in Disney.
That's the thing about acid. It's one sentence like, I can't find my wallet, even before you full trip balls.
And you're already in a bad spot.
You're done.
Yeah. Already in a bad spot.
You need to do acid, like, if you haven't done it, you need to find like Billy Connolly.
Yeah. No, here's my fucking 2 cents. Don't do it. Don't ever do acid. If you're listening to this and you think, no, there's no reason to ever do acid.
What about shrooms?
Acid's that's a different story. But acid is.
You need a guy like Billy Connolly there. It's all ridiculous. We're going to have a fucking great time.
I look at it now.
And if it begins to rain, we'll fucking dance in it.
Yeah.
And
if
you're
going to,
yes. I'm with you.
But instead, you're usually doing it with a bunch of rednecks in the woods, and then the trip starts with them going, you're going to have to ride in the back of the truck. And you go, I don't want to fucking do this anymore.
Hey, throw your bike flag up in the air.
Yeah. And so that was so then I tried to turn the buzz around by like positive energy. I was like, guys, let's go on a ride. Let's go on a ride. And Harper's fucking losing it. Happer is losing it. Hutch still can't, and has like panicked eyes. And we go to Peter Pan's ride in Never Never Land. We go get in the line, and the lady,
slow it down, big man.
The lady sees us and goes, sorry, gentlemen, just twosies. and I'm like, we can't separate one of us.
But that's also, did you think that first, or was she speaking another like fucking twosies?
Twosies.
You're on acid, and she's going, we can do twosies or foursies.
Yeah.
You're threesies.
We don't do threesies, gentlemen.
And
just
you're like,
twosies.
what the fuck is she doing with her hands?
Yeah. So, but I remember they were referencing all the positive energy with the kids, all this positive energy. So there's families and everyone's smiling. We're the fucking 3 dirtbags. And then I go, honey, we're going to have to go threesies. And she's like, sorry, gentlemen, just twosies. And then Hutch leans in real smooth and goes, how about I eat your face? And she was like, huh? He's like, how about I eat your face? And she was like, all right, go ahead, threesies. And just put us in a ride. So 3 gentlemen, 3 grown men.
Peter Pan.
In a child's ride. A child's ride.
The Peter Pan one?
Yeah.
Lots of black light.
In Orlando. The fucking, like, pitch black. You get into the ride.
I go on that one every time. I love it.
But it's a child's ride made for a kid.
Fuck that shit.
In the 1970s, and you got 3 obese men.
Yeah, there was big kids back then, though.
So we go in the ride, silent, like fucking pitch black silence.
You don't know it's a ride.
Yeah. We're just like.
What cab did we get in? There's a tag right there.
Where's this guy taking us? Hey, follow these guys.
Just keep up with traffic. We don't know where we're going yet.
This is really backed up.
Is there an interior light?
We're all going to the same party.
Yeah. Let's go fucking Altamont.
We should get in our pajamas too. Ooh, I hope we don't stop at the pirate ship. So none of that fun shit is happening. It's all panic shit where like it's like you hear Harper whimpering a little bit, and then Hutch leans over and he goes, real funny, now give him back. I go, what? He goes, you know what I'm talking about. Just give him back. I go, I have no idea what you're talking about, Hutch. He's like, my feet, you took them, now give them back. I'm like, Hutch, I don't have your feet. Breaks the child restraint, gone. Fucking gone.
He's
Hutch, gone. Hutch, I looked to Harper, I go, we lost Hutch, and Harper's crying like, he took my shadow too, right? We go through the ride once, hop off. Harper stays on the ride, goes back in. I stay out. This is when the Disney cops show up, right? Grab me, cuff me.
Wait. But what about the speakers?
Fuck, what speakers?
On the ride.
Oh, you don't hear a thing.
No, you said this once to me. You said like all those amazing like Bose updated Disney speakers.
Your dad's gay. Like just little stuff like you don't know what they're saying.
Suck your friend's dick.
Suck a dick. And you're like
hitting the bushes and shit.
Yeah, and
and you don't know if it's real or not.
That's right. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
There were speakers hidden everywhere, so you heard shit, and you were like, "Who said that?" Oh man, I totally forgot about that.
I don't have a shadow. You're like, who's what? Who doesn't have a shadow?
So the cops cuff me. Harper goes back in for a ride by himself on a broken ride.
Onesies.
Yeah. Onesies. I'm going back in.
Happer.
No man left behind.
Check the list. Happer 1.
Check the list. Happer, 1. I'm going back.
These are good.
So he goes back in. He comes back out around. He comes off. They grab him, cuff him, put him on the back of their golf cart. And then
why are you being arrested? Nothing's happened.
We've broken the ride and we were causing havoc because people are coming out going, there's a lunatic in there. Someone just face raped Peter Pan. Hutch is running amok in there. We've broken the ride. Harper's crying. Hutch comes out like 5 minutes later, no shirt on. Shirt tied around his neck like a cape, both shoes in his hands. I got my feet back. Fucking place. They drive us then through Disney on the back of a golf cart to the Disney jail. This is where Hutch is yelling out, "Fuck Mary Lou Retton," right? And I go, "Why are you saying that?" He goes, "I don't know. Every time I say it, they look." And then Harper's crying, "They're gonna rape me in Disney jail. They're gonna rape me in Disney jail." They raped him, man. It was really sad. I did too. We held him down. It was a fucking. Me and Goofy ran a train on.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, are the comedy stylings of Bert Kreischer and Jay Mohr on the Jay Mohr podcast, More Stories. Fucking hilarious. That Bert Kreischer, he's got some stories to tell. He's got a great story about how he was in college and they did some European trip with a bunch of students and the club where they were at partying. He befriended a group of people. They took to him so much because he's so much fun to party around. They call him the Machine. And it turns out to be the Russian mafia. And he gets himself into a whole shitload of trouble. And he ends up being the go-between to ice things down between the group and the mafia. And the story he tells about how he gets back to the States is fucking hilarious. Barely makes it out by the skin of his teeth. And Bert Kreischer is a regular on the Joe Rogan podcast too. And he's done plenty of work with Jay Mohr, so he'll be frequenting that show too. Yeah, the Jay Mohr podcast, More Stories. You gotta check it out. Jay Mohr does amazing impressions. His Tracy Morgan is on point. And the thing about Jay Mohr, when he does an impression, he's not just repeating lines from movies or famous quotes the celebrity has said. He encapsulates their personality so he can spontaneously jump into a voice in the middle of conversation and add to it. He's fucking talented, phenomenally talented. So check him out, folks. Okay, well, I do have another audition to sit down and do the news with me this week. He's an elderly gentleman, so he'll bring in some old world views and give us a glimpse at what it was like in this country before fucking internet and reality television. So before we wrap it up, we'll do some news, give this person a chance to audition, and then we'll call it a show, folks. All right, so let me introduce my guest for the day, Mr. Milo Buckshot Owens. Welcome to the show, Milo. How are you doing today?
Aim is pleased as a puppy with 2 tails.
Well, we couldn't ask for any more than that. All right, you ready to sit down and do this thing? You have any experience in broadcasting?
When I was young, I used to host the Chuckle Wagon Saloon Comedy Hour. Ain't never done no fancy radio fucking no.
Well, I'm fairly new at this whole podcasting thing, so don't you worry. And you just deliver the news, and if you feel like cracking wise, go right ahead. Bring that comedy experience you got.
All right. Well, let's get right into this then.
Alrighty, and Ambrosio, cue the new jingle. It's pretty fucking cheesy, but I just felt like putting something together brand new. It might stay, it might not, but here's a new news jingle. So laugh if you want. Sink or swim. Now the news. What's going on in the world today? Television, music, NBA. Young or old, and fat or thin. Just sit right down and listen in.
Here's a story about home remedies for your scratch discs. When my grandchildren come to visit, they're always messing with my movie collection. My Clint Eastwood and John Wayne DVDs. They constantly place them right side up and not in their cases. They just want to give them what for. They just want to give them some of that slapping around the house business. It's all I can do to keep from just backhanding each one of them silly little bastards.
Yeah, I feel your pain, man. Kids make me nervous.
I took to the interwebs and I found myself some remedies, some home remedies. Turns out you can use yourself some turtle wax. It's right here.
Turtle wax?
Right there, put on your automobiles.
That's amazing.
You used to buff out some of those scratches and divots and make your entertainment new again.
I would have never thought turtle wax would fucking rescue my DVDs.
Also says here you can use your furniture polish to fill in the grooves.
Like Pledge?
Or some of them itty-bitty scratches. But where a big scratch disc, where your discs that are heavily damaged, it won't work so good. But the biggest surprise that came to me is when I read it, you can use your plain old banana. You just take your banana peels and just rub it around on the underside and belly under DVDs or video games, and let it dry and buff it off, and the results are pretty good. You can even use toothpaste.
Well, I gotta fix my Borderlands 2 video game anyway.
Especially your bracer baking soda kind.
Arm & Hammer baking soda. Now there's finally a use for that shit. That's ironic, because back in the day when my mom was trying to pinch pennies and be a little more frugal, she used to make toothpaste out of baking soda for us. The fucking shit was horrible. Tasted like shit. Not that toothpaste tastes good.
It says here that baking soda with a good rigorous rubbing will get into those hard to reach screws and buff it out and make it somewhat playable. It's not going to work every time, but it'll help us get to the fair amount of not so damaged discs and make them playable for air. So there you go, folks. Some home remedies to resurrect your favorite DVDs and video games.
That's awesome, man. Great story, and fucking a little bit of home improvement advice. I got to admit, though, I thought we would be hearing a little bit more, hearing more news oriented around things that you'd be familiar with in your heyday.
What's that supposed to mean?
I wouldn't imagine you'd be using a DVD player that much. I could be jumping to conclusions.
Goddamn right you're jumping to conclusions. I'm just as hip and cool as happening as any of you young bucks. Don't be a player hater.
Whoa, okay. Well, my bad. Well, let's not get off on the wrong foot here. My bad, Milo. And let's just move on. How about one more story, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right. You better watch yourself there, kiddo. I'll educate you with some old school. Bring it. Bring it down on you. Bring your house down on you. You hear me?
All right. Yeah, I hear you. Calm down there, old timer.
Don't you condescend to me. All right, our next story. It's about poop transplants. That's right.
What? Did I hear that correctly? Did you just say poop transplants?
Don't you interrupt me.
Whoa. right?
Damn kids have no patience or manners these days.
Okay.
I'm trying to read
Go
you a
ahead.
story, trying to do the news here, trying to deliver the news real professional like, and I can't have you just jumping in
All
on
right.
top of me when I'm reading pertinent information.
All right, I apologize.
As I was saying, poop transplants may combat bacterial infections.
I'm sorry.
Poop transplants are an effective way to treat people with one type of intestinal bacteria infection, and new study shows. Researchers transplanted fecal matter from healthy people into the colons of people infected with the notoriously hard to treat Clostridium difficile bacteria, which causes severe watery diarrhea. Lord knows, it is just a horrible experience, one that I have to go through like almost every frickin' week. The researchers found that 46 and 49 patients got better within a week of the treatment. The transplant works because the stool from healthy people, when mixed with warm water and delivered via a tube into the patient's colons, helps reestablish the normal balance of bacteria in the intestine.
Well, hold on. Don't jump ahead too quick.
God damn it,
Give me
that's
just a second. This is supposed to be a give and take between two people. All right, so let me comment on what you just read. Yeah, it got a little scary there for a second because you immediately want to think, how the hell do they deliver someone else's fecal matter into your body? And my mind was begging that it wasn't going to hear the fact that it goes into somebody's stomach. But I can't imagine that they're feeding somebody's feces up into
It's
your
just good science.
intestines through your colon. That's fucking ridiculous.
That's why I'm reading the story. It's fascinating. I may have to experience this one day. If they can cure my diarrhea with someone else's shit, then goddamn it. In the home room, there's plenty of that laying around. And if it can be put to use, then the better I damn believe I'm going to have them give me this poop transplant. So back to the story, C. diff is a serious infection. People die from this. With this treatment, the cure rate is close to 100%, said study researcher Dr. Meyer Ramesh. She's one of them foreigners. An infectious disease physician at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit. When the 47 patients for whom the transplant was successful, 4 experienced a recurrence of their infection during the follow-up period. By contrast, studies have shown that the infections recur in 25 to 30% of patients who received the standard treatment for C. diff, which is a course of antibiotics, Ramesh said. As of 3 months after the treatment, the patients developed no complications or side effects as a result of the transplant. Researchers reported today at an infectious disease research meeting in San Diego. C. diff infections are linked to 14,000 deaths in the U.S. yearly, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. People at highest risk for the infection are older adults and those who take antibiotics. It's believed that antibiotics may disrupt the normal balance of bacteria species in the intestine, giving C. diff bacteria a chance to thrive. The patients were not bothered by the possible ick factor of the treatment, Ramesh told My Health News Daily. These patients, they suffer so much from their symptoms, he said. When I tell them about this treatment, they say, wow, that makes sense. Go ahead and do it. No patients declined the treatment, he said. 4 patients in the study died, including those whose C. diff infections had been successfully treated with the planned transplant. The deaths were unrelated to C. diff, the researchers said. All had cancer before starting the treatment. While this study and others suggest that fecal matter transplants are effective, randomized controlled trials are considered the gold standard of evidence in medicine. One such trial was recently approved to begin in the U.S. in that study. Patients will be randomized into 2 groups. In one, patients will receive fecal matter from healthy donors, while in the control group, patients' own fecal matter will be transplanted back into them, according to an article published in September in the journal Clinical Infectious Disease. Wasn't that fascinating?
That was fascinating and educational. And fucking disgusting. Alrighty, everybody. Well, let's all thank Milo for coming in and auditioning.
It was my pleasure there, except for in the middle part where my apologies. I've never done this before. In retrospect, I realize it's more entertaining to have two people discussing the subject at hand. So,
No.
have some patience for an old man.
No worries here. And you are welcome to come back anytime. So I'll drop you a line and we'll bring you back on the show as a guest. And I think I've mentioned it before. I think I'll have a circuit of people that I will book for the show to help me time and again with delivering the news. And I think that'll wrap it up for this week's show. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. You can contact us at Facebook under SOS space WITHWAM. You can Twitter us at SOS WITHWAM. And email us at the same thing, SOSWITHWAM at yahoo.com. And I should thank Ambrosio for queuing up the sound effects and running the soundboard. And that will wrap it up. My name is Wes Rodriguez for Ambrosio Inigo Montoya and Milo Buckshot Owens. Thank you for tuning in to Sink or Swim. What's your dream?